Let's talk about the moon in astrology or conspiracy in both. Let's talk about it in both. Now, this info comes from a lot of different places, including, I believe, well, Gaia is one of them, but also information from like Dolores Cannon and Michael, who also did past life regressions in a book. But I don't completely go by any of these things. I just like to collect knowledge from different places. There's also a lot of different belief systems mentioned and groups like societies' beliefs in all of these conspiracy theories, but I just want to share some that I have written notes on. And because as an astrologer studying the moon, I like to also know about like the origins of information and things like that. So yeah, so starting off, did you know that there are people in the planet that were considered to be here before the moon? They were called pre-Selenites, and Selene meaning like the moon. So pre the moon, and like indigenous people, and they described it when it first arrived as being much closer to Earth than it is now. Just really huge in the sky, and they didn't really know what it was at first. A lot of this information was passed down by word of mouth, but it is written in some like historical records. You can look that up. So to think that the moon may not have been here, or at least visible to some people on the planet like a long time ago, is really interesting, because if we think like astrology, the moon represents our intuition, our internal emotional network, and structures that kind of really go into like our temperament and how we process things, especially emotions. It also, because it's linked to intuition, there is a school of thought that believes that the moon represented wisdom and the sun represented the will, and that the sun was the light and the moon was the eyes to see through, like the wisdom to see. And I find that really interesting because there are conspiracy theories that link the moon to not only being like a possible satellite, because at some point when they were doing like testing, they hit the moon with something, some kind of frequency or something measuring, and they came to believe that it was hollow because it supposedly rang like a bell. And so that was just another interesting tidbit from a documentary, I believe, that I watched. So there's that. And then also one conspiracy theory that relates to, I'll say, a secret society, not so secret, but a society. They actually believe that the moon is linked to, or like reincarnation trap, where souls go up into the moon and are processed by whatever's up there and then sent back down. That is like actual people's beliefs in the system. So I don't completely disregard it, because the moon in astrology actually represents, it could be linked to past life and our souls traveling through the different journeys of our different lifetimes. And that's why we have the intuition that we have, because we've been through so many different situations and experiences in the amalgamation of all of our lives. So I find that really interesting as well. There are conspiracy theories that believe that the moon, as it affects the tides, that's not a conspiracy, but they believe that it also could affect almost like having a netted matrix above the matrix, the natural Earth's matrix. So almost like a holographic illusion being processed through the moon on top of the energetic matrix that naturally exists on the planet, and that it's interfering with us. And it's interesting because when we talk about the moon and a full moon, lunar, the word lunatic relates to that. And because on a full moon, people are seen to have way heightened emotions. Even like car accidents increase during full moons. I've heard that psych wards have a lot of increased activity during full moons. So that's also very interesting. So as an astrologer, I always like to kind of keep two sides of a perspective. I think that's the Gemini, major Gemini placements in me. And so, although I'm very heavy about the moon and information, so I'm still looking into these things and just wanted to share some of the interesting things that I found. I see the moon as a natural part of us, of course, with like processing and emotions. Of course, all of that is true. But to think of the actual physical moon that we see up in the sky, and its origins, and like the crust on the moon being found like also on the earth and things like that, like they aged it, and like the age of the moon doesn't really match the age of the earth. Another piece of information that was interesting. And there was even in Egyptian times, there was a goddess named Hathor that related to cows, actually, in like the Milky Way galaxy connection. And there is even a theory that maybe there were like Hathors kidnapped to the moon, and that's how they were able to like recreate human beings back in Egyptian days. Thus like the Garden of Eden like being like the start, but not actually like the original start of humans. That's another conspiracy theory, connected information. So yeah, I think it's so interesting to study these things, especially if you're into astrology as well, and to like connect all the information that is found. I just love doing that. So what is the moon really? Is it our friend? Is it our foe? I think that we shouldn't worry until we know more details, but it is nice to keep like a neutral position, because there's even traces back to, we had sun worship and lunar worship back in like Egyptian times and things like that, and there was like a big shift. Lunar worship and sun worship is like the masculine and the feminine, and we see how things are very out of balance now, with like the patriarchy, and you know, women being like suppressed as opposed to like men. And so, you know, I don't like to think of any objects or planets as negative or positive. I see it all as energy. Everything's energy. So it's interesting to think how this energy could actually be affecting us, and even our thoughts on the energies that are affecting us. If you're interested in an astrology reading that includes the asteroids to get a closer but also new perspective on your chart, you can book with me. Also follow for more conspiracy info.